just it. And this is why I want to return to From Software's early works with Kingsfield. Just the slow, plodding, confusing, and frustrating foray into dungeon crawling. There's such a unique charm to their attempts at it that I've found myself in love with. I'd love if they made a return to that style with everything they've learned since departing Kingsfield. What are you even talking about? I just came here to celebrate my birthday. I want you to consider this. A huge populace jumped into the Souls series, but we all understand those games a great deal now. We have and had companies chomping at the bit to recreate Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and even Elden Ring. They all come away with varying levels of success, typically failing several checks, often feeling sludge-like, having a lack of variety, exceedingly dull visual design, or just having all of the above. It's a tired genre, the Souls-like. It's hard for it to hit gold, at least for me. So, like a few others, we stepped back and looked at From's earlier work with Armored Core and Kingsfield. Some people were already on those wagons since the dawn of their creation, but it was only after Souls took prominence that some bigger lights were cast on them. What made From Software the way they are now? Why are you still talking to me, man? I just want to go home now. So we have Kingsfield, and people bounced off of that really hard. Like I said before, it's rough to get into. I genuinely have a tough time recommending these games to people. They have to have a particular interest in something that requires a lot of patience to submerge yourself into. It's just something that's really obtuse. But those who did filter into it, they grew a really particular fondness to the design philosophies of those games. It took it a long time, but we are actually seeing a resurgence of Kingsfield-like games now. It blends in with the nostalgia of bringing back the mid-90s era video games. Their eccentricity is missing, replaced with modern sensibilities for the current video game. We have games like Fly Night, Monomyth, Devil Spire, Dread Delusion, Verho, I think, Lunacid, and its prequel game, Lunacid Tears of the Moon, which actually uses the creation tools that made Kingsfield. People are yearning for a refined version of Kingsfield, and we're getting them. As a matter of fact, on top of surely many I missed, there's another one that I was given a chance to look at that might tickle your fancies. Please don't tickle my fancies. The world is a mess. Demons have found way to be amongst humans. They have betrayed your lord, and as a foot soldier, you alone survived and seek revengeance upon this demon. Having found a way into their labyrinth, you must fight and puzzle your way through to them. Labyrinth of the Demon King is a game developed by J.R. Hudepohl and published by Top Hat Studios, Inc., that follows in the familiar footsteps of Kingsfield's dungeon-crawling roots. A dark atmosphere with RPG elements, gear finding and upgrading, the slow dungeon crawl, stamina, you know how it is. Despite my ramblings and bamblings about Kingsfield and how important it is, I find that it uses Kingsfield as more of a base for a wild concoction that was brewed. We got that Resident Evil / Silent Hill inspiration for its exploration, mapping, and survival horror elements. A sprinkling of Condemned criminal origins for its intense first-person melee combat. All relatively finely tuned into a unique and delightful experience. Before delving any further, it's important for me to note that I've been given an early key from Top Hat Studios to look upon this game. Thank you all for the opportunity, and special shout out to Joe B for being friendly and informative to all my inquiries. The story is relatively straightforward. As mentioned, you're seeking vengeance for the death of your lord and are clambering your way through dark corridors and slicing, stabbing, and beating your way through. You find yourself in a set of towers, facing off against tougher and tougher foes in darker and darker environments. You'll find notes cluing you into the places around you, as well as meeting interesting faces, hidden behind their masks, of course. You have a few characters you'll be talking with here and there as your support, offering their services to provide usable items, weapons, upgrades, and even cleaning a dirtied weapon for you. They also provide some context here in the Labyrinth, implying others have been brought here against their will, as well as being trapped here, uncertain to ever escape. Being a skilled fighter, thankfully, you pave a way forward and uncover darker truths about the predicaments facing those who have lived here before, their plights and failures to survive, giving you tips to certain enemy encounters or explaining certain of the great hells to you. For example, next to this monk's helmet piece, we find their notebook detailing the people ordered here and imprisoned indefinitely, and the ruler laying with a demon. They explain that even the Suge Knight is deeply concerned. For some reason, they've been given pity and left with a notebook to write down these thoughts as they wish for this fortress to be destroyed. Overall, I appreciate the world building set within the game. It never feels overbearing, and it's placed well enough to keep you interested, and the ending reveals feel both foreshadowed enough and very much like a spark to all the connecting dots that gave me I figured this was the route, but that's pretty cool. I really enjoyed its flavor. In getting around these environments, you're going to have to rely on your trusty busted sword, foot, wits, and map. Beating upon enemies is an initial difficult gambit, having a 3-hit combo, a heavy swing, or kick to break guard and interrupt, as well as a parry and riposte on top of your jump, or backstep/dash. There's a range of emotions to keep you alive, where the enemies have an array of attacks, tricks, and buffers to keep you on your feet. Reaction timing and animation reading is key to keeping your health high. Every attack has a couple correct responses. Every swing, kick, and additional dash beyond the first costs you some stamina. Having none prevents you from any offensive or defensive postures, leaving you wide open for taking hits. On the plus side, sprinting doesn't require any stamina. It just stops stamina regen, which is a nice decision considering how slow stamina regenerates. Take that, Kingsfield. I will say that after attaining the Naginata and understanding the combat flow, combat encounters were rarely an issue, with the exception to being waylaid by enemies in which I could not defend myself. Forgetting a talismans system, which could have gotten me a leg up on situations, but I'm pretty bad about remembering the use items beyond health recovery. These talismans offer a variety of helping tools, which damage, push away, or even heal yourself. I completely forgot them until near the end of the game. That's on me. Though, that said, other than multiple enemies, I rarely found myself facing death. I could make mistakes and fail, and it always felt like it was on me that I'd have to return to a checkpoint, which are relatively infrequent, but placed disparately enough to not have that Dark Souls 2 or 3 problem where bonfires are practically kissing. But even in boss encounters, I didn't struggle much at all. They were stressful for sure, and the designs were pretty fun, but I took them out pretty swiftly and retained most of my healing items. My Naginata had decent reach, and I had kept upgrading it to kind of waste most enemies in a single 3-hit combo string. Enemies do respawn after returning to a room, but I only ever initially had an issue with this, just due to my own inexperience with the combat and my lack of upgrades for the weapons and my own health and stamina. both of which only upgradable via items traded into a weaponsmith or ritual incenses to be used at a shrine to buff your body. After attaining a decent amount of both, seeing returning enemies was a quick ordeal. One of the more threatening creatures is this. Essentially the nemesis of this game, Nuri Botoke. Apologies. It is unrelenting and really threatening. Hits hard as hell and builds up some kind of darkness meter. You can slow them down and get them to drop to a knee, but they'll get back up and keep pursuing you. You can tell they're nearby by this higher-pitched beaming sound as they summon in. They are really effective threats. There's a similar demon later on that slowly haunts you and floats in your direction and is also equally undefeatable. Looking back at this footage after a few days, I kind of want to come back in and experience more of it, despite the ease I experienced personally. I would love to see a higher difficulty setting or some kind of challenge mode in the future. Or modes. Exploration is its own treat, I will say. If you have any fondness for Resident Evil or Silent Hill, and the progression in those games, you'll find yourself delighted. Minor puzzles, finding keys, and backtracking frequently. You'll find maps to specific floors of zones to help ease navigation, though I have a few issues with how this was handled. I wanted to have at least a compass to navigate which direction I was facing. Having to enter a room in like a 4-entry box to figure out where I am was a bit annoying. There's no cursor to indicate where you are on the map, aside from the lit up portion. There's also portions of the map which don't have a map. Sections completely guided by your own memory and sense of direction. They're not mazes, these portions, but they are a tad annoying that they have nothing associated in terms of like some sort of guide. Especially when in some sections it's hard to parse how it's connected to another place. Take, for instance, these outside balcony segments. Like, once I'm in the fortress, it's not a big issue, but I can't easily remember how these pieces connect. My memory is inconsistently good and bad. It just arbitrarily decides what's worth keeping note of, which made the backtracking a lot more messy than I would have liked. But still, I had a lot of fun navigating these zones and finding keys and realizing, oh, I can go here now. This game oozes that PS1 dark art style. It nails its aesthetic with how crunchy every texture and object looks. On top of the really deep-fried cutscenes they like to throw a lot of at you. It carries the torch of that old era of Kingsfield in its own weighty way. Practically faceless entities, giving you very little to go on with what feels like a world of history behind them. Monsters are a little simple, most being a kind of person-shaped thing, others being more hideous in nature, which I respect as they are nasty and spit nasty shit at me. Or poisonous bugs. I think they're cute, honestly, a lot of these enemies. And seeing them ragdoll is really satisfying, especially if you knock their head clean off their body. It's kind of a visual dopamine. Colors aren't too varied, as they're all very drab grays, reds, browns, and some greens, but the visual language is still distinctive through all of it. This in tune. Get it? With the sound design. Now you get it. Working in tandem to make some really effective dark and gritty atmosphere. Like, I know enemies spawn behind me. I'm pretty confident this happens. But they have a great audio tell for it that keeps you on your feet. It doesn't feel like they're cheating at all. It just feels like a dude tracked you down and is trying to get a crack at your skull. Speaking of cracking skulls, there's really crunchy hits. Each swing and parry feels weighty but swift. Having a flow of combat, getting a swing in, following up with a hefty kick and backstep, just beautiful music for a beautiful dance of war. Great haunting ambiance with subtle music and an obvious nod to save rooms with a nice piano theme for our safe zone. Oh, and there's this awesome track that plays during a final segment that I can't spoil, but it's really a banger. I recommend getting to that point just to hear it alone, honestly. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time playing Labyrinth of the Demon King. Running at 100% of the achievements, I'm sitting on roughly about 10 hours of play. I do wish there was a little bit more, like incentives to replay. Doing speedruns to unlock unique armor or weapons, possibly. Something akin to unlocks like those in survival horror classics. But it's more wishful thinking for me to hop back into those dreary halls. I want another excuse to explore and plod my way through. Try another weapon, or do some kind of dumb kick-only run. Only time will really tell for what the dev has in store for this game and anything else they have in the future. They've proven they got the chops for making something really impressive, and I look forward to what is in store for their future. Well, you've come this far, so this is your chance to hop off the train before I get into some spoilers, and this isn't really an analysis, just some thoughts, really. Thoughts, connecting dots. But still, jump off the train now if you don't want more than you've already seen. You won't leave me alone and shut up, so whatever, dude. It's clear we're dabbling with hell. Demons, dark rituals, entrapment. Our deaths seem to not set us back to our previous save, but revive us at our last shrine visit. There's a cyclical nature to this, and an underlying vibe that something is amiss beyond there's some badness abound, you know? These snippets, in notes, of each of these great hells explain to us torture induced upon sinners, all of which seem to be unbelievably painful. From boiling, to being dragged by the neck, to skinning, forced to face these pains for being adulterers, assaulters, thieves, murderers, drunkards, and those who do a cuss. All be damned. Though some of you might be familiar from where these originate, of Buddhist belief, these are Naraka. In English, this translates to hell in a sense, supposedly in the form of a tower. Each of these hells rest atop another, stacked up to 8. Unknown how tall this tower truly is, but it doesn't really matter. These hells keep those who have bad karma, and for an indeterminate amount of time, keep them as retribution. Sometimes even acting on killing them and reviving them to return and repeat the suffering again. This is why we see enemies returning to locations we've cleared, swept with their blood and body parts, stuck in the cycle of dealing with us as we find our way up the tower. These beings we're facing, colloquially demons, are not beyond redemption. Within Buddhist belief, we want to see them seek liberation from the chains of their hell. And in this, our resolve to fight these resurrecting humanoids might serve to help them. We could give them redemption. Or maybe I'm stupid. I don't know. These are yokai we're dealing with, which are sort of supernatural beings emanating from aspects of the world. Spirits born from folklore of events or physical objects, not necessarily human. So yes, I am stupid. These aren't things we're really redeeming, I don't think. This hell has ravaged the mortal plane, so maybe it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Everything is blurred together and your goal is vengeance. Maybe it's better if I leave it at that. There's definitely a lot to consider here that I would talk more of, but I shan't be doing that. This game is out now, as of this video, and I don't want to spoil it all for you. That's for your journey to have and my secrets to carry. I want to thank Top Hat Studios for reaching out to me for this early look at the 1.0 version of this game. I can't say for sure what comes next for this game in terms of updates, but the groundwork is here for a lot to be expanded on, whether within this game or another in the future. It's still a really excellent experience, a unique blend of game genres I didn't expect to meld so well together. I really recommend this game if you've enjoyed any of what you've seen. I also want to thank y'all for tuning into my channel. I think I'm starting to get a real foothold on how I want to be considering and discussing video games, even if it still feels like I'm a fledgling video maker who does a talk. I'm happy with what potential growth I have, and not in the sense of how many followers I could get. I mean in terms of how I see making videos. I have a lot of ideas. They could be really cool. I just gotta stick the landing, you know? And that's kind of just how life is. There's always room for improvement, always a way to be better. We're never done growing as people until we've given up. Even in the next life, if there is one, depending on your belief, we could be better. I need to be. Otherwise, what's the point? Yeah. Oh, sorry man. I've talked your ear off enough. See you later. Hello, I'm the Nostalgia Critic. I remember it so you don't have to.